TCU was the biggest surprise in all of college football last year. After going 5-7 in 2021, no one really expected TCU to do much in 2022, especially with the first-year coach in Sonny Dykes. Instead, the Horned Frogs just decided to run the table, going undefeated in the regular season and ultimately finishing the year at 13-2 as the national runner-up, falling to Georgia in the national championship game. It was absolutely unbelievable. No one saw it coming, no one expected it, and the Horned Frogs continue to defy the odds every single week. But now, heading into 2023, TCU's not going to surprise anybody. Everybody's on alert for TCU and the Horned Frogs. The question is, can they replicate the success that they had in 2022? That's what we're here to answer today. So guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We're so glad that you could join us today. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on thegridironexpert.com. Do not miss out on those picks, guys. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the country for one of the lowest prices in the country. Guaranteed winnings every single year, beating out over 80% of the national analysts and handicappers. And check out our Patreon account as well. Become a part of our Patreon wall of fame and gain access to a lot of exclusive content and offers that you will not get anywhere else. So go check it out. The link for that down in the description below. Take a look at TCU. I mean, this is a team, guys, that, again, 13-2 last year was unbelievable, but it was so close to being a mediocre year. 6 wins by 1 possession. TCU had 6 wins by 1 possession and a handful of other games that they didn't really pull away until later in the game. A couple 10-point victories against the likes of Kansas State and West Virginia where they were struggling until the very end. But you look at this year, a lot of changes for the Horned Frogs. New offensive coordinator coming in and Kendall Briles from Arkansas after Garrett Riley left to take the job at Clemson. Max Duggan, their quarterback, is gone. Kendre Miller is gone at running back. Quentin Johnston is gone at wide receiver. The Horned Frogs will be without their leading passer, obviously, their top 3 rushers, their top 3 pass catchers, and only have 3 starters back on the offensive side of the ball. Although it should be noted that their expected starting quarterback, Chandler Morris, was going to be the starter last year for TCU before going down with an injury. Max Duggan came in and just never gave the starting job back. So Chandler Morris is more than capable of running this offense. TCU's defense, 7 starters back on that side of the ball, but they've got to improve after giving up over 400 yards per game and 29 points per game in 2022. That's going to be an area of concern there. A lot of turnover on offense, though. That's the biggest concern for TCU. But you look at their schedule, it's really, really favorable, especially those first 8 games. I mean, there's a good chance TCU could start 7-0, 6-1. It would not be a shock. And I'll tell you right now, I've got them starting 2-0. They're going to beat Colorado, and they're going to beat Nichols. You know, I'm not here to talk about the Colorado hype right now. This is a team that went 1-11 last year, lost those games by an average of 30 points per game. TCU beat them 38-13 last year. Now we're expecting that because Deion Sanders is there and that we're bringing in all these big-time transfers, that Colorado is going to be a national title contender. It's not happening. TCU will win convincingly at home against the Buffaloes, kind of start to crush some of those hopes of a dream Colorado season, maybe quiet some people that thought Colorado was going to be great with all these transfers. TCU starts 2-0, big win over the Buffaloes. Week 3 at Houston, give me the win over the Cougars. This is a Houston team that's going to be playing in their first Big 12 game. So obviously the emotions are there. They've got a coach in Dana Holgorsen that's no stranger to the Big 12 after being the coach at West Virginia for a few years. And then, a Houston team that offensively has the talent to hang with TCU. Houston's hype. First Big 12 game, it's at home. TCU has to be mindful not to sleep on the Cougars or overlook them. But at the end of the day, to me, TCU's offense, while I do lose a lot, is still going to be pretty solid. I do believe that they're going to be pretty solid. And Houston's defense is not good. It's a Houston defense that gave up over 32 points per game and over 275 passing yards per game. Chandler Morris has a big, big day. TCU fans go, who's Max Duggan? What guy? We love Chandler Morris now. We're good to go. He has a big day against Houston. They start 3-0. Make it 4-0 in the Sonny Dykes Bowl. I think TCU takes down SMU rather convincingly as well. Last year it was close. 42-34, one of those one-possession victories we were talking about. TCU got the win over SMU, which was Sonny Dykes' former school, so a lot of emotion there as well. But the game back at Fort Worth, it's going to be at TCU. While I love Rat last year, I love what he's doing with SMU. They do lose Tanner Mordecai to Wisconsin, a huge blow for their offense. While Preston Stone should be pretty solid, I just ultimately TCU is the better team in all aspects here. They get the win, and just like that, they're 4-0. Go ahead and make them 5-0 with a win over West Virginia, a team they beat by 10 last year, scoring that touchdown late to make it a 10-point game. The key for TCU here, though, is if they can stop the run, if they can slow down West Virginia in their run game, they're going to be just fine. Could see a lot of points being scored again, but with home field advantage, I like TCU to get the job done. So they exit the month of September at 5-0, maybe in the top 15. People are starting to talk about maybe another dream run for TCU. Well, then the schedule starts to get a little bit tougher. Beginning of October, they start at Iowa State. I'm going to give them a loss here. TCU will take their first loss against Iowa State. And many people will say, how is that possible? TCU beat Iowa State 62-14 last year. But there was a lot at play there. That was the last game of the regular season. Iowa State was 4-7 at the time. They had nothing to play for. Nothing to play for at all. It was senior day for TCU. TCU, of course, wanted to rack up a bunch of points to impress the playoff committee. They couldn't afford a loss if they wanted to make the college football playoff. A lot was at stake for TCU. They had everything to play for. Iowa State had nothing. It's going to be a little bit different this time around. Ames, not an easy place to play. Iowa State, much better team than people realize. Yes, they were 4-8 last year. TCU had 6 wins by 1 possession. Iowa State had 6 losses by 1 possession. Completely drastic season had Iowa State been able to win some of those close games. The Cyclones' defense is really, really good. People are sleeping on them. I think the defense does just enough to slow down this TCU offense. I think Iowa State a little angry that 62 points were hung on them last year. They make sure that doesn't happen again. Iowa State in Ames defeats TCU, drops them to 5-1, but TCU will get their 6th win and will clinch bowl eligibility with a home win against BYU on October 14th. BYU is one of those teams this year, one of those Big 12 newcomers that for me is kind of hard to gauge, right? How are they going to respond playing these Power 5 opponents week in and week out? How will Keaton Slovis fit into the mold in Provo? Will the defense be any better for the Cougars? A lot of questions right now for BYU, a team that I do think can flirt with bowl eligibility this year, but ultimately I don't think has enough to come on the road and take on this TCU team that's going to be hungry to get back in the win column. So 6-1 through 7 games, TCU's on fire. They're looking really good, but then look at those final 5 games. At Kansas State, at a good Texas Tech team, Texas, who's going to be very solid, Baylor, big-time rivalry, and then at Oklahoma. I mean, those final 5 games are tough. So obviously, if TCU wants to have a shot at another Big 12 title, wants to remain relevant in that national conversation, they're going to have to rack up a lot of wins early on and then hope they can start winning some of those tough games down the stretch. I'm here to tell you, I don't think they're going to win too many of them. I do think they lose at Kansas State. Last year they split the series against Kansas State, beat them 38-28 at home in the regular season, and then lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game, which hurt because they didn't win a Big 12 title, but still TCU still made the college football playoffs. It didn't really hurt them in the long run. I'm here to say that I think Kansas State probably should have gone 2-0 against TCU last year. They really should have. Kansas State got just riddled by injuries in that regular season matchup. They were winning that game convincingly, up by 18. TCU came all the way back to win by 10. Now the game is in Manhattan, assuming Kansas State can stay healthy with a healthy quarterback in Will Howard and another stingy defense. The Wildcats win at home. TCU takes their 2nd loss of the year. I think they're going to take their 3rd loss of the year as well, following the bye week on a Thursday night game at Texas Tech. Both teams are coming off a bye, so neither's having to deal with too much of a short week. TCU off a week of rest. Texas Tech off a week of rest. TCU did beat the Red Raiders by 10 last year, 34-24, but this Texas Tech offense, guys, is good. If you're looking for a Big 12 sleeper, maybe a Big 12 team that comes out of nowhere like TCU or Kansas State did last year, for me this year, it's Texas Tech. The offense is going to be one of the best in the country. Everybody is back for Joey McGuire offensively. This is an offense that was averaging over 300 passing yards per game, and a defense that, while not great, should be a little bit better. Texas Tech can exploit this TCU defense that should improve a little bit under Joe Gillespie. It wasn't, anything great last year, so it should be a little bit better. But Texas Tech can exploit it, especially at home in Lubbock in a midweek game. Midweek games get kind of weird. Give me Texas Tech to hand TCU their 2nd straight loss. 3 losses now in conference play. That's going to eliminate TCU from a Big 12 title more than likely. Still have a shot at a very solid season, though. They come back home to take on Texas. So back-to-back road games, too, not easy. But they come home to take on Texas. This is an intriguing game. I will say this. You talk about TCU's defense. Last year's victory over Texas when TCU defeated the Longhorns 17-10 in Austin, that was their best defensive performance of the year. That showed that TCU wasn't just an offensive juggernaut. They could be a mix of both. They could win games in different ways. They held that Texas offense to just 28 rushing yards and 199 total yards. It was an unbelievable performance from TCU defensively to win in a very hostile environment in a game where they were very disrespected and actually, I believe, over a touchdown underdog. Now Texas comes to them, a Texas team that could be flirting with the Big 12 title, could be flirting with college football playoff hopes, and TCU is going to have a great opportunity to play spoiler, to ruin those hopes, and that's exactly, to me, what they're going to do. Texas is good. They're not good enough to run the entire table in the Big 12 like TCU did last year. They're going to slip up somewhere. And I think they're going to slip up against TCU on the road. This TCU team has all the pieces to take down Texas. It's a major trap game for the Longhorns. Joe Gillespie draws up a fantastic defensive game plan just like he did last year, and the Horned Frogs upset Texas, the Big 12 favorite for many this year, and who knows what kind of ripple effect that could have, not just in the Big 12, but also in the college football playoff race as well. With the win over Texas, riding the high, they take down Baylor the next week. They beat Baylor last year 29-28, one of the wildest finishes you've ever seen. Obviously, TCU choosing to run it there with the clock still running, rushes the field goal unit out onto the field, kicks the game-winning field goal as time expires, crushes Baylor's hopes of potentially playing spoiler to TCU's playoff hopes. It was a wild, wild game, wild ending. Baylor, TCU, we've seen classics in recent years. It's always a very fun rivalry game. We're going to see another one here, no doubt about it, another fun addition. But ultimately, I don't think Baylor has enough to come on the road and get this win. I still have questions about Baylor's offense, especially that offensive line. Winning a game in the trenches is not something I think Baylor's going to be great at doing this year. The Bears struggled. TCU wins on senior night to clinch their 8th win of the year, and they traveled to Oklahoma, a team they beat 55-24 last year. But obviously that was an Oklahoma team that was, I believe, fresh off that loss to Kansas State, not feeling too good about it there. Dylan Gabriel gets knocked out early, not playing well, obviously has an injury, and TCU runs away with it. I will say, even if Dylan Gabriel had stayed healthy, TCU still would have won that game. TCU was on a completely different level. They were playing lights-out football early on in that game before Gabriel got hurt. But that obviously played a pretty big factor. Gabriel's healthy here. Senior night for the Sooners. A lot on the line for them, potentially with Big 12 title hopes and maybe playoff hopes. I just don't see Oklahoma dropping this game at home in the season finale. TCU falls to the Sooners, but clinches an 8-win season. And I got to say, guys, that's pretty dang good. TCU had a great year last year. They were on the right side of a lot of close victories, and it was an unbelievable run. But to expect the Horned Frogs to bounce back and go win 10, 11, 12 games again in 2023, it's just not happening. They lost too much from an offensive standpoint. They lost their offensive coordinator, a lot of key changes, and they're not going to find themselves on the right side of all those close games like they were last year. An 8-win season in year 2 after losing so much, a shot at a 9-win season and going to a good bowl game, that's a great year 2 under Sonny Dykes. That's a great season for TCU as they continue to build and continue to remain a contender in the Big 12, which is something that they were expected to do every year under Gary Patterson, and now it appears that we're going to be they're expected to do every year under Sonny Dykes. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. You do not want to miss out on that. And don't miss out on our Patreon account as well. Exclusive college football content there year-round that you do not want to miss out on. We want you to take advantage of it, guys. We want you to become a part of our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.